We're good to go.
Got it on the gram.
Yeah, trying to get there. So I got this new pillow
Oh boy.
a little while back.
Yeah.
And like I've had shoulder problems and stuff for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a result of my shoulder problems, like it's just all down my arm.
Yeah.
And then my middle finger when I would hit, like start out golfing,
Mm-hmm.
literally I'd have to hit like 10 balls
Yeah, I
to
remember.
just
I
get through
remember
the
that, like
pain,
last
right?
year. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was miserable, bro. I
Mhm.
mean, miserable.
Yeah.
Went to the range yesterday. Nothing.
No pain.
No pain.
How did that happen?
I don't know, dude. Isn't that wild?
Did you so you're attributing it to the pillow?
Yeah, because I think it affected, so it's all of those muscles all up in here are all like intertwined, and then it all like comes down kind of here. So I was like having all these, bicep, tricep,
Yeah.
shoulder problems and whatever. So I think it was just all intertwined and interconnected.
Yeah. That's why I got my new pillow, because I had tingling in my fingers. It was like all the way down from my neck.
Did it help?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
I think
That's
my pillow is
awesome.
called a Sunnybrook or something like that. What's yours?
Oh man, it's some specialty pillow. I can't remember the name of it. It's got like if you sleep on your side, like one side has like two like little bumps. It's like you lean your head on the side, and those bumps kind of keep your head in place like that.
Yeah.
Or if you lay on your back, you can turn the pillow around, and it's got like a little dented place, and it keeps your spine like perfectly in alignment and all that good stuff.
Yes.
Can't remember the name of it though. All right, I got to go over here and
do all the stuff.
Update. It didn't show up. There we go. I was trying to edit the info. Today's number 180, bro.
Is it really?
180. Oops. All right, so I'm gonna do this here. All right, I'm gonna save it there. Publish original post. Okay, I'm gonna go over here to Twitter, because we've been having some good luck with Twitter.
Twitter, you gotta, speaking of keeping stuff aligned, you gotta hold Twitter's hand.
For real. All right, let me okay, did that one there. All right, and then I will go. Let me retweet it here. Retweet it. Did you hear that? Retweet it. It's hard to get that. It's hard to get that terminology out of your lexicon.
Yeah, what do they call it? Re-exit?
Right. It's a repost.
Uh-huh.
Whatever that means. All right, I don't want to switch. I'm going to share it to all the peeps.
Uh-huh. Tracy Russell talked about being a side sleeper. You a side sleeper?
Side sleeper, absolutely. Is there any other way?
I don't. Because of my stupid sinuses and junk that I have. I can't. I sleep on my back, and it feels like everything in my whole head just goes right to the back of my nose and throat.
So, I don't know. I never went to the doctor, but a few years ago, a basketball ricocheted off the backboard. I was in the stands at a tournament. I was coaching our team. I was in the stands, and a ball. Kids were horsing around, and it ricocheted weird off the backboard. I was in the stands, and I mean, right on top of the nose. And man, my nose was toast. And so ever since then, like one side, it feels like, I think it's what they call a deviated septum.
Oh yes, the old.
So it's like, feels like somebody's got their finger on my nose like this at all times.
For real.
So, I do sleep on my side, but it's, it's not always easy.
That's awesome.
A deviated septum. Okay. Just a couple more. Gotta get out to word share. Gotta do that, right?
I had probably, I'm trying to think how many pillows I've had in the last
Oh, bro.
4 or 5 years. So
Bro.
crazy.
It's unbelievable, man. I had one where my wife made me get rid of it. There's literally no telling how old it was,
Uh-huh.
but, like, I couldn't get the right size pillow,
Uh-huh.
but this was, like, a really skinny, firm one. I like a firm pillow,
Uh-huh.
and so I'd have, like a whatever pillow underneath is fine, and then put that skinny pillow on top, and it
Uh-huh.
just, like, made my
Yeah.
own
Yeah,
double pillow.
you create your own, like, fluff level, height.
That's right.
That's how they ought to be made, you know?
And to answer Jay, yes, Jay, we have reached that age. We're talking about pillows, and we're
Pillows,
talking about body pains. That's how old we are
pillows
now.
and pain. The uh, the one pillows that I think are the most absolutely overrated
Okay?
are the pillows that are the essentially they are recycled chunks of foam that you lay your head on and feel like you're laying on
Yeah.
literally coconut shavings the whole night.
Coconut shavings.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
man, that's horrible. That's horrible.
historically Samoans don't sleep well when they sleep on coconut shavings.
I'll fire some shots at some people, like, you people that like soft pillows, what is
Yeah.
wrong with you? Are you
Yeah.
communist or something? Like, you put your head in, and the whole thing, like, covers up your whole
No.
face, and, like, I don't get it.
Right. Right.
What in the
People
world?
who hey, people who have soft pillows and heavy blankets.
Mm. Mm. The
It
weighted blanket face, I don't get it, bro.
The weighted blanket, like the soft pillow, basically claustrophobia is your head, and the weighted blanket, claustrophobia is your whole everything else, and so
It's exactly right, bro. It is so true, it
I
is so
just use
true.
claustrophobia as a verb.
That's
Claustrophobia.
powerful.
I said claustrophobies. It it claustrophobies you.
That is awesome, man. That is
Oh,
amazing.
man.
Yeah, we just make up words as we go. And again,
What's
Jay says
what's
we're prophets. Side sleepers are prophets. We
It's
know
true.
that. Yeah. Yeah. So you wanna give us the Kimba Starkey weather report this morning?
I don't see it.
You
Do
don't
we have
see it?
one?
We do. It's right after Jay's or right after
Oh, I
Tracy's
can't do it.
side sleeper.
I can't do it. I like Charles Barkley. I can't do it. Hummel threw me off. I can't do it.
He messed you up.
And then he
All
wrote
right.
then he wrote that I look like he looks like Doncic. He's from the same country as Luca. Ken looks like he's ready to go to the shooting range. Shooting. It should have 2 dots over the J. He's going to
Yeah,
the shooting.
he's Norwegian.
Oh,
Who knew
shooting range.
who knew Hummel spoke Norwegian?
My word, man.
That is
All right, you
amazing.
can help me out with the weather forecast, man.
All right. 65-degree high of 72 in Northeast Ohio today.
Mhm.
Thank you for that report, Kimba Starkey.
Chief meteorologist. How about Michigan? Is there anything what's the weather looking like in Michigan?
So the weather today, it actually changed. It updated on us. Supposed to be pretty cold today, but actually right now, Ken, I hate to break this to you. I know this is not something you probably want to hear,
But
but right now it is warmer in Sylvania, Ohio than it is in Dayton, Ohio.
Shocky Molaki.
How about that?
You know what? It's raining here. I can imagine.
See, it's beautiful, beautiful sunshine, 68 degrees. Light wind out of the south at 7 miles per hour, looking towards 72 today in Northwest Ohio.
My.
There you go.
You know, I was looking for Norwegian in the translate. Can you believe that they have Polish, but they don't have Norwegian? They have
What?
Dutch. They've got Dutch. We could do this. So in Dutch, the shooting range, is that for gun or the driving range? Did he mean driving or shooting? Okay, look, the shooting range in Dutch is
Yeah.
the Schietbahn. Is it? Well, you had German. Is that? I don't want to say any wrong words. The Scheitbahn.
Is it SCHIET?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Does it all go together? Is it like the Schietbahn? Schietbahn. That's like it's like that one guy. He's over there at the Schietbahn.
Mr. Obermeyer, my teacher, my German teacher. That's how he said it. Ich bin ein Berliner. Oh man.
What's the weather like up there in Michigan?
Yeah, for real. So for Hummel, I do want to tell him today in Oslo, it's 51 degrees, partly cloudy, increasing clouds overnight. Low 51.
In Oslo. Why are we reading Oslo? What is that? You just pull that out of nowhere.
Norwegian.
Oh,
yeah,
Norwegian. In Oslo. Ich bin ein Berliner.
I don't know which Davis this is making a comment, but very correctly and astutely. So the famous line from JFK, Ich bin ein Berliner.
Yep.
He added ein, which basically said, I am a jelly donut. He should have said, Ich bin Berliner. So he was a jelly donut. I appreciate that historical reference there. That was good. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. We ready to go today, Ken? We caused enough problems.
Yeah. Do we have anything to talk about? Absolutely we do.
That's debatable.
Do we ever not have something to talk about?
It is debatable.
That's not the question. The question is never, do we have something to talk about? The question is it ever worth listening to?
Exactly. All right, let's do it. Let's get this going. Here we go.
Let's go.
All right. This is how amazing we are. We can just like flip the switch just like that, right? All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mobilized Church Podcast. This is Chris Dillingham alongside my big brother, Ken Dillingham Jr. the third, who is a Berliner or Norwegian today. We've had quite a pre-show, some interesting comments already, Ken. It's gonna be an interesting day to keep us on track. I feel like this is a day where the ADD superpower is gonna come in really handy.
It really is. It is. This is absolutely the missional Schietbahn today.
Oh man, that is so awesome. Yeah. Oh my goodness, you're gonna have to go back and catch the full episode on YouTube or whatever to catch that reference, man. That is so awesome.
All of our Dutch Amish listeners are which is an irony in itself. It's like, they have a telephone
on Facebook.
They had their telephone booth down at the end of the deal. It's no longer a telephone booth. It's now like a cell phone that they pull out of a drawer, and the kids are sneaking. They're like, "Oh, he said it's a missional shooting range."
That is so awesome, man. I was not expecting that. I was
I
not
know.
expecting you to throw that out there.
I
So that's
know.
pretty awesome. So, yeah, so shooting range, but you got the Titleist on, so, like, you know, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, shooting range might be a little different today. I
Yeah.
feel like you might be hitting a different kind of a range today, although it's
Shoot some
raining, you
birdies.
said, so
It is raining. Yeah.
that
See,
might be a
I can wear this outfit on a day when it's raining and come
mm,
to the church, and they'll be
mm.
like, "Pastor playing golf."
I didn't know
I
you
mean,
had
I don't even know if
Cajuns in
there's
your church. You had
I don't know.
Cajun people in your church.
Yeah. Throw a little that seasoning on it, Shy. Put a little
Oh,
seasoning on it, put a little peppers and some onions on it, mix it up like that, and put that seasoning on it, Shy. Then you're gonna have something good with that chicken.
that's so awesome, man. Oh, people did not know they were showing up for a, cooking show, Cajun cooking show. I can
Uh-oh,
imagine
uh-oh,
yeah.
uh-oh. Jim and Carice Davis said, "Your AI subtitles are killing me." See, this is what I'm afraid of.
No, bro.
I'm afraid of the fact that I
Oh.
say something like "Scheitbahn," and it's like it's like,
Jesus have mercy.
what did AI just do?
We just got marked explicit on our
I know.
podcast for that.
Right. It's Dutch for shooting
It's
range.
shooting range, people. Come on
People,
now.
come on,
Get your
man.
mind
To
out
the
the
pure,
gutter.
all things are pure.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Alright, we're gonna have a great show today. Oh, man.
Oh, oh no.
We're getting off
Oh no. The comments are flowing in. Oh man, God help us. See, that's what I was
that's exactly right. We have led this show totally and completely off tracks already, so
Reese has
oh,
got his work
man.
cut out for him
He
in the editing.
does. He does. Bless his heart.
Okay, for those of you that man that are wondering what in the world we're talking about in the pre-show, one of our astute observers said I looked like I was getting ready to go to the shooting range, but spelled shooting with a J in there, and it looked like he was speaking Norwegian. So we pulled up handy dandy translate
Yeah.
and couldn't find Norwegian. We found Dutch and found that the word shooting range is the word Scheitbahn or Schietbahn. We're not sure. It's a IET. So those of you that are German or whatever, you'll have to correct us on that. But apparently
Jesus.
AI is AI is killing us right now.
Oh my goodness. I don't even know what to do with this.
All right. We're gonna have to
Oh, goodness.
redo 3, 2, 1.
We
First
might
time ever in
we might
180
do
episodes.
3, 2,
Let's
1.
do it. Let's redo 3,
I
2, 1.
think we should just keep going.
No. No, man.
Oh, man. I'm dying.
Look
Oh my goodness.
at Hummel says one letter off.
Oh, man.
See, Jim and Creek said it's censoring us.
Oh
Bro,
my goodness, this
we
is
need
wrong.
every
Okay.
now and hey, oh golly, our theme song should be every now and then I get a little bit crazy. All right.
Little air supply. Little air supply. Alright, I think we should just plow on through, bro. I mean, the
Bro,
damage
come
has
on.
been done.
No,
The damage has been done, bro.
I know, but we can't have this in our actual podcast and people listening to it, and it's their first introduction, and they're like, well, these guys are idiots.
And
Which is like the first introduction or the last introduction or the middle introduction. I don't know.
oh, man, that is amazing. That is amazing. Alright. Alright. Do we wanna 3, 2, 1, or we
I,
wanna
I,
just plow
I,
through?
I think we've got, well, here's the deal. It's been 7 minutes since you 3, 2, 1'd it, and it's been nothing but ridiculousness. So it might be
Might be
desirable at this
good.
point. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate people hanging with us through this. So, all right, let's do the first time ever.
Yeah.
First time ever. We do
Yeah.
apologize if there are
Connor
children
Brown says
listening.
officially off the rails. It's true. It's
Yes.
but
Yes.
watch the trained professional here. 3, 2, 1 it, and it'll be like
Back on track. That's how we roll. All right, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mobilized Church Podcast. This is Chris Dillingham alongside my big brother Ken Dillingham Jr. the third, trying to get everything back on track and locked in and focused today. Ken, we are laser focused on the conversation today. We don't want to get sidetracked or distracted by anything.
Today, we are laser-like.
It's something like that. Something like that.
Today we are laser-like. We're laser-like, man. We have such an important topic. We have such an important topic today that if we get sidetracked, it might tarnish the the awesomeness.
Yeah, and we do apologize to all families that have listened or watched the pre-show.
Yes.
AI, listen.
AI was cussing, not me.
Hey,
I wasn't.
No.
I was speaking Dutch.
And which you're prone to do is just every once in a while throw out a little Dutch. And so we all know we've all gotten voicemail, like, it transcribes the voicemail. We've all gotten that stuff, and it's like, man, they did not say that, but it got transcribed that way.
For real. I'm like, David Bernard said, what? It was AI.
It was AI, man.
It was AI.
And
you know what? We go Dutch. Look at us, our podcast. We go Dutch. That's what we do.
We can do that. Do that. And apparently AI is not up to date with the Dutch language.
Yes. Well, and thankfully, clarification, AI didn't cuss. It just censored us with asterisks, leaving it up to the imagination. But we have a topic today that's
we're gonna get locked in, we're gonna get focused, and so we do apologize those have been with us for a while that we had to backtrack just a little bit. So today, Ken,
yes, sir,
are you ready to just go after our topic today?
I am so. Hey,
I'll tell you what, I feel like you're on such a fire. Oh, look at that!
I've got my
Dillingham Group towel.
I got my DG towel. I'm so
powerful.
Yep.
Let's go. All right. So let's do this since you're on fire today.
Okay.
And you got this thing really kicked off in a big way this morning.
Oh, it feels so
good. Why don't you introduce the topic today?
Oh my heavens, yes. Well, so today we're talking about this topic that we've got deals with what is probably, I would say that it is a topic that we get probably the most questions about, the most it's most vital. The title today of our episode is Personal Preparation for Missional Living, and today we want to talk about how preparing ourselves to live mobilized and to have natural spiritual conversations may be the most important thing that we do, because missional living in our everyday in the everyday rhythms of life is not only what we personally do, but it's what we promote. It's why we partner with pastors and churches. And it's also one of the most challenging things that we do. And so the comments that we get, the questions that we get concerning mobilized living often has to do with, sometimes it has to do with skill, like, how do you create those relationships, and what do you do, and what are some ideas, and can you give me a strategy? Can you help me develop skill for spiritual conversations, and all of those types of things. So, so it really, preparing ourselves is, I think, the key. Chris, we use this comment, that before you can make disciples, you first have to be the disciple. Today, we're
Right.
going to really talk about why being the disciple is the key and how do we prepare ourselves for that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree, man. It is definitely one of the most I think one of the most asked questions we get. And there's, I mean, obviously there's been a lot of conversation over the years. We understand because we are spirit-filled believers
Yeah.
and the Holy Ghost is missional. The Spirit of Jesus is missional. And so we understand the responsibility that we have to share what God has done. But I think sometimes there has been some of the methodologies we've used to try to motivate people or to try to get people to step out of their comfort zones or whatever. I think actually in a lot of ways, Ken, has produced the opposite effect. It's made
Oh,
people feel
so
inadequate.
true, dude.
It's almost highlighted, certain personality types,
That's so good.
and so I think it's made people feel like, "Well, I can't do that," or so like either personality types or it's been so information driven that
Yep.
people feel like, "Well, I don't know enough, and so what if somebody asks me a question I don't know or whatever, so I can't I feel insecure." Let's put it that way. I feel insecure
Yep.
about being engaged in the mission because I just don't feel like I know enough information about the Bible to answer that. And obviously, I mean, we have a responsibility to study, to show ourselves approved. We have a responsibility to get in the Word and understand it. But you don't have to be, a doctoral student at Urshan graduate
Right.
or
Yeah.
have a degree somewhere
Right.
to be able to discuss the things of God, what God's done, and whatever. So, I think this is a really important conversation.
Yep. Absolutely. And the thing about it is we, when we get questions or there are people that say, man, this isn't easy or how do you do it? Or I've tried, but that wasn't,
Yeah,
those are the times when we really dig in. And so we want to ask that question to our audience today. Why do you feel like, let me say, we won't even make that assumption. Some people might say, oh, that's not hard for me. But the question is, do you find that living daily on mission as a way of life is sometimes challenging? And we'd love to hear your comments. We're going to talk about that today through the through our comments or our reading the comments and then making our own responses and commentary based upon what your input is. But we want to ask you today, like, do you believe that living on mission as a way of life is sometimes challenging? And for us,
sure.
we would say that the bulk of people, pastors that we work with, the what they're hearing, they're asking us, look, this is what we're hearing. Um, it's there's three really key things that we think it really boils down to. Number one is, and these are the things that we're going to kind of dive into and discuss today. Because today we really want to discuss the ways that we can overcome these things to
Yeah,
prepare ourselves to live as everyday sent ones. And really, we boil it down to three key things. Number one is it takes time for it to be who you are, right? There's a huge
yeah,
difference between spiritual conversations as a task that you need to do and simply being who you are. The second thing is we often focus on the task at hand, so it's easy to focus on the road right in front of you and miss
yeah,
what's all around you, right? And
yeah,
then finally, the others oriented living is not our normal human tendency. You know, we know we know how we are. Like we know
sure.
how we know what kind of day we're having. We know how I'm feeling, so on. We know all that we need to get done, right? That
Yeah,
so we're very self-aware. And I think this is a key. Selfish is more than a lack of generosity. It starts with being primarily aware or concerned with self. And I think too much self-awareness of living
mhm,
on mission, living mobilized, having spiritual conversations, it really becomes like what Roundup is to grass and weeds. Self-awareness sometimes is to mobilized missional living and spiritual conversations.
Man, that's so true, bro. And again, I've just been kind of locked in on Sermon on the Mount, and as Jesus introduces the value system of the kingdom, the majority of what he focuses on in the Sermon on the Mount when he lays it out is not
Mhm.
even so much righteous living with God, although that's the source. We understand that, and that's a huge part of it. But what he was laying out was that righteous living with those around us, and it is that awareness of others, and a massive part of our righteous living, our righteousness that we have through Jesus
Right.
should be reflected in in not just wanting to, like, grow a church, not just wanting to
Yeah.
win souls, not just
Yes.
wanting to, be effective in that area, but genuinely being concerned about people around us, genuinely being aware of what others are going through and what's going on in their lives. And that's a big part of what Jesus was trying to say was, as a reflection of your relationship with God, it should be revealed in how you treat others, how you care for others, your concern for other people.
Mhm.
I think this again, going back to what you said at the beginning, this is why the be the disciple piece is so critical and it's so important, is because the righteousness of Jesus should produce in us. If
Mm.
we have the
Mm.
righteousness of Jesus working in us, it should produce a genuine concern, a genuine
Mm.
compassion, a genuine thoughtfulness about other people and what they're going through. It should not have to be programmatic. It's like we've talked about with like first impressions ministries and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
If we have to teach people to be nice,
Yeah.
we've missed something.
Yeah.
There should be something that just intuitively comes to us because of the Spirit of Jesus that's living in us.
Yeah.
It should intuitively come to us that we want to be, it should show in how we treat people. It should show in our
Wow.
concern and compassion for each other. I think because we live in such an independent, self-driven world,
Yep.
it's just so easy to fall into that
Mhm.
mindset and that attitude.
Mhm. It's funny, I was thinking about you had mentioned that about the fit team, and you were talking about that at, I don't know, several episodes ago, and later I was thinking about that, and I thought, "That's interesting." It is interesting that there is this sort of tendency when people are on a first impressions team, fit team, whatever you call it, there is this tendency to say, "Okay, here's the manual. I want you to read over the manual." And it starts by saying, "You are on the fit team." That means when people come through the door, you are to greet them, smile, shake their hand, and ask them, "How are you doing today?" And it's
Yeah,
so
right?
funny because because it's like I thought about this, like, what a beautiful example of trying to institutionally or artificially produce something that Jesus said, "By their fruit you'll know them."
Yeah.
And, like you're saying, well, we want to plug somebody in. We want to find a place for them. They're generally pretty grouchy people, but we're going to teach them how to be nice and how to, whatever.
Right,
And it's just
right.
so interesting. And the thing about it is, and I mean, there's some great comments coming in. Sister Dr. Norris said, if you don't know the answer, let them know you'll find and get back with them, right? Sharing our testimony is the key. And I think, man, Chris, when you're talking about this, as you were talking about self-awareness, um, and just that the hindrance that it is, it's funny because most of the time that I've personally experienced or with like my kids or whatever, self-awareness being a hindrance
Mhm.
is not usually on the pride side of things.
Right.
It's
Right.
usually, I don't feel comfortable in this outfit. Everybody's, I don't know anybody here. You're
Yeah.
walking in feeling, almost feeling like, what is the word? It's almost like all eyes are on you because you're not confident or you're not comfortable in yourself, or you're like, and it's funny because it really takes a lot of maturity to get to the place where you realize, I'm not going to let I'm not going to let my perception
Yeah.
about what people are thinking get in my head,
Sure.
let alone what they're actually thinking.
Yeah. No,
You know what I'm
absolutely.
saying?
Yeah.
And so being the disciple is so central to getting our identity in Christ, so that like I mentioned earlier, we know how we're feeling. We know the day we're having, but we also are almost subconsciously aware of our inadequacies. We're also subconsciously aware of that I don't feel like I've got it together. We're sometimes sort of innately aware that through the fall, maybe, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that's so key to living on mission. And so it's funny because what we're really wanting to move toward today, as we sort of our first major topic or theme, is cultivating humble boldness, which
Sure.
almost could feel like an oxymoron, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I think this is where a lot of introverts right now might be kinda checking out a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because again, the perception is
Mm.
it's kind of a personality thing.
Yeah.
And so, I've gotta be this real radical, bold person. And bro, this is why I love where the Lord has led us in, like, spiritual conversations and being able to have spiritual conversations, because boldness doesn't look like what we often think it looks like.
Mhm.
We often think the boldness is the loud, in your face, whatever. But a lot of times boldness is the willingness to ask the hard questions,
Mhm. That's it. That's what
right?
boldness isn't. Yeah, brash. It's not brash. It's not cocky. It's the ability to be. It's really it's a confidence in a natural human way. Boldness is a confidence to just do what needs to get done.
Right,
But
right.
in the spiritual sense, boldness is, I know whose I am and I know whose work I'm doing.
Absolutely. And a confidence in okay, so I so strongly believe in the message of Jesus. I so strongly believe in the
Yeah.
power. I so strongly believe that Jesus is the better way,
Mhm.
that I'm willing to say now, and we'll get into some reasons why, why there's timidity,
Yeah.
why sometimes people have a hard time overcoming it. But I think the first piece of it is, like, you have to genuinely believe that Jesus is legit the better way. No ifs, ands, or
100%.
buts about it. If you're not convinced of that, if it's more of, again, going back to being the disciple, if it's more of a relationship out of duty and obligation,
Mhm.
you're gonna be less inclined, like, I don't really, and we may never say this, but, like, I don't wanna go to hell, and so I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna live this life just because I don't wanna go to hell, but I'm not really passionate about, or whatever.
So good, man.
If you
Right.
become transformed by the power of Jesus, and he's consistently taking those places in your life that are not like him, making them more like him, and now all of a sudden you're experiencing, the good life of
Wow.
Jesus, then
Wow.
you're gonna have a passion about it, and you're gonna wanna share with others,
Golly. It
right?
Chris, does a peach tree ever think, "Oh, here we go again. I got another season. I gotta make peaches." Like a peach tree doesn't, I know a
Right.
peach tree doesn't have brain, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Like the point is simply that when we live out of a sense of, which, by the way, this could go this could go into such a deep conversation about the difference between because it's funny because I sent something to we have uh sister Dr. Norris on, which it, she's the discipler. Her husband's got the all, like PhDs and all this stuff and whatever, but she's like, it's so awesome. She's the disciple. She's the discipler of him, and it's so cool. But like, one of the things that I sent him something recently about the way that Western, behavior modification works, which actually comes from Plato. We've talked about this, that if you give people the beliefs, eventually the beliefs will trickle down into their behavior. Why? Because once you say, well, do you really believe that? Then there's a sense of obligation. Okay. Well, if you believe a certain thing, if I believe that, if I've got knowledge about that, if so, you may have somebody who has lived their life to refine and sharpen their understanding of doctrine,
Yeah.
which then produces sort of an obligatory, like my obligation is to live what I believe. I believe the Bible says that the Bible is true. So I have a responsibility to that. And there's a responsibility that the peach tree has to its purpose, but the peach tree doesn't live out its purpose because it's obligated to do what God made it to do. And so God says every day, I want to reinforce Mr. Peach Tree. I want to reinforce the fact that I made you to make peaches. So you have an obligation and responsibility. The peach tree basically says, hey, this is who I am. This
Yeah.
is what I do.
Right.
And what would happen if we could get to that place that we cultivate humble boldness through this idea that it is the overflow and flourishing and the fruitfulness of who Jesus has made me to be, who I am in him.
Yeah. That's why it can't be programmatic, right?
Just
That's why programs will never work because it doesn't address whatever the root issue is in a person that hinders them from living missionally. Whatever
absolutely
that,
true.
whatever fear they're wrestling with, or any place in their life that's holding that back. All a program does is it's like a toupee, bro. You're still bald underneath it. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just saying, bro, it's like a comb over. Everybody knows what's going on. It just
Yeah.
and at some point, the truth is gonna come out. And so,
Yeah. And
um
who wants to make a living as a traveling toupee salesman?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah.
So that's why people get frustrated with programs, and that's why you know, it's impossible just to take a program and pick it up and plop it down in another location and
Yeah.
it's gonna work in this
Yeah.
location or whatever, because there's so many factors and there's variables. And a lot of times the reason that one program worked in that local church is because the culture of that local church and it
Man.
produced those people. And so that's why, again, just reiterating, going back to the point of this all begins with being a disciple of Jesus and letting him address those places in us, whatever it is, whether it's a place of unbelief
Yeah. Yes.
or it's
Yes.
places where we've become self-absorbed. We're over, we're more concerned about our own well-being than we are others. Like whatever that place, the beautiful thing about
Mm.
discipleship is the Spirit has the way of bringing those things out and revealing that and showing that to us and then start dealing with it. So what we're saying is don't go and just start trying to go have spiritual conversations because this is what you're supposed to do. What we're
Mhm.
saying is let the Spirit transform you. And then just like we talk about, church planting and launching missions should be missional overflow. It should be the natural byproduct of the church living on mission. Living on mission should be the natural byproduct of the Spirit of God working in our lives and transforming places in us.
Man, you know, the beautiful thing about this is it's like this is why the Bible says that we're to work out our own salvation with fear and trembling, and that we're to edify each other in love.
Yeah.
It's interesting because you may have somebody who based upon going back to what we're talking about, who you are, right? Based upon the fact that you walk into a room and you don't like the outfit you've got on. And so you feel self conscious about it. And so then you automatically think that the moment that you see somebody, somebody's whispering to somebody and they're talking about something that they had been talking about before you even walk through the door. But you walk in, and the moment you walk in, somebody leans over and whispers in somebody's ear, and you're like, "Oh, they're talking about me." Well, you don't know that. And I think this is the thing. Like sometimes we make assumptions. I think this is why it's so important to edify each other in love and not make assumptions. You know what? You could have a guy, you could have a gal who goes to general conference and, goes to a big, meeting or whatever. And, and maybe they don't feel confident. Maybe they don't feel successful. Maybe they don't, whatever. And so they've got, they go out and spend exorbitant amounts of money so that they can buy all new clothes and new custom suits and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And whatever. And it might be to try to be a toupee,
Yeah.
or it might just be so or it might just be somebody who has a great inside track to a custom suit maker, and they're like, you know what, it's I'm tired of pants that don't fit right and whatever and so on and so forth. That has nothing to do with their identity. Their identity is secure. So like, it's not like, and I think this is important, it's not like, well, the way that you really prove your identity in Christ is you just wear rags and then you prove to everybody this doesn't, I don't need to have a toupee because I don't need to have cover up to whatever. And that's why I think it's important for us. It's so vital for us to realize that as living on mission, mobilized people, that like we don't have it all together. They don't have it all together. It's not really about, if we could get to the point where we're like, look, my identity is satisfied in Jesus. And so when I am engaging that person, I'm engaging the person as his representative.
Yeah.
It's not about what they think of me. So
Sure.
let's move into that, Chris. Let's talk about cultivating humbleness or humble boldness, and where some spiritual shyness comes from, and what should we
Yeah.
do about it?
It's exactly where I was going, and I would love to hear from people that are watching, listening today, your thoughts on, what are some things that produce or that make us timid. I think there's a plethora of answers. I'll just mention just a couple that I think are critical. We've already kind of covered a couple of them. Obviously, number one, I think, is fear of rejection. I think this one is obviously huge in the day we live in.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think because of the way that we view living on mission,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's kind of viewed as like a sales pitch.
Mm.
You either win or lose. You either get the sale or you don't. And then can you compound that with the culture that we live in, which is like open to discussion, but don't dare talk about religious
Mm-hmm.
things,
Mm-hmm.
don't try to convert somebody and whatever. And you combine those two pieces where like my job, years and years ago, bro, we did a deal when I was in Champaign, and we did this big push to teach Into His Marvelous Light. And I'm not against Into His Marvelous Light Bible study. It's a 1 hour Bible study, whatever. But it was very much like at the end of that 1 hour,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
if you don't want to get baptized, you clearly don't love Jesus. And
Yeah.
like it brought to a very abrupt
Mm-hmm.
confrontation.
Yeah.
And there are moments and times where that may be a good, healthy conversation, but it just put people in this place of like, like again, selling a vacuum cleaner or something like that, and you put the
Mm-hmm.
pitch on, and then you try to get the sale at the end, and you figure out why they didn't buy, and then how do I readjust after that? I think that fear of rejection is so huge in this day and age, that piece of it, and just the vitriol, like people don't want you to talk about your faith and your
Yeah.
religion. And again, bro, this is why I
Or
love
at least, that's what the loud voices
yeah.
cause you to believe, which
Well,
isn't, what we find isn't true
hold on.
by
What I would say is
research.
this, but what I would say is this is the key, and this is what I was gonna say, was the title that you put for our notes today was Personal Preparation for Mobilized
Yep.
Missional Living. The
Yep.
piece that's important in that is the mobilization piece,
Yep.
because
Exactly.
we're talking about the fear of rejection often comes because there's no relationship. If you have people that you're connected to, that you love, that you're talking to them
Yep.
about all the important topics and subjects, you're gonna be able to have difficult conversations and not be afraid of that rejection right? Simply
So
because
true.
you've got those relationships. That's what removes in a huge way, that's what moves that fear
So
out of the
good.
equation.
So good. And you know what's interesting is too is also we're living in a world today where the your persona is like almost who you are with social media.
Yeah,
Um, you know, it's funny because I think combined with what you said
yeah,
about the socio-religious atmosphere, but also the cultural this world where, you know, it's social media, it's what you post, it's, you know, a lot of the like influencers,
mhm,
uh, you know, bro, the top 5 when one of the top 5 answers in kids from ages 5 to 15 is
yeah,
what do you want to be when you grow up? Social
mhm.
media influencer has entered into the top 5. What do you want to be when you grow up
Whoa,
answers?
that's
Yeah.
bananas. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
So what does that mean? That means if I want to be a social, if I want to be a social media influencer, then that means I've got to have likes.
Mhm, mhm.
It's interesting how that, you know, especially with like the younger generation, like the way we talk about it from, you know, the sort of this Gen X zone and even millennial zone. I think Gen Zs are going to have a fear of rejection that comes from almost a whole totally different, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
A whole totally different place. I think it's human nature. Fear of rejection, right, is
Yeah,
human nature.
sure.
But man, when 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 wanting to be an influencer becomes one of the most like with doctor and, you know,
It's
whatever the
crazy.
answers, influencer.
That's
So
so wild. Which
yeah.
right, which hinges on being liked, being well
Hmm.
received,
Yeah.
or the other side of it being just so outrageous and, confrontational and whatever
Yeah.
that you
Hmm.
know, so then that appeals to a certain group of people, so you have that kinda deal. One other thing too, Ken, that I'll just mention real quick with fear of rejection is and this is gonna be a delicate topic
Oh
to kind of
boy.
address, but part of that fear of rejection, I think sometimes is our expression of outward holiness sometimes, that
Okay.
there is
Okay.
a fear of, especially in our world, man, how are people gonna respond? They're not gonna wanna change, those
Ah,
things. They're not gonna wanna live that lifestyle. And they so to your one of your points that you mentioned about not relying
great
fully
point.
on the Holy Spirit, I think that is honestly, yeah, if you're looking at it just from a purely carnal, natural standpoint,
Mm.
sure,
Mm.
absolutely. But if you're looking at it from a spiritual standpoint, again, why do we live, not just physical dress, but the other aspects and components
Yeah.
of living holy, character and integrity and honesty and all of those kinds of things? It's because of the influence of His Spirit, the
It's true.
influence of the Holy Ghost,
Yep.
and so modesty, all that kind of stuff has to be a part. I could share stories about, my the lady that ended up being my wife's best friend, Lisa Brown, who passed away from cancer a few years ago. Lisa was wild, man. When they first started coming to church, like she was a bar fighting crazy. She was wild and just made statements like, "I'll never live that life. I'll never do that." That you extract out of that the work of the Spirit of God, absolutely. But as
Wow.
the Spirit of God started working on her, she was willing to allow Him to be Lord over every place in her life, which included those kinds of things. So again, kind of an elephant in the room. We don't always talk about it, but I think sometimes there's an underlying current of that feeling because of the outward expressions of holiness
Hmm.
that sometimes I just I
Yeah.
don't wanna broach that subject, or how do I get there with that person?
Hmm. So when we talk about what makes us timid, that the word timid we don't often think about, but the word timid is actually in the very middle of the word intimidation.
Yeah.
Intimidation.
Yeah.
And I do believe that the enemy wants us to be intimidated.
Yeah.
And I think this is a topic that really hammers in on that. So, when we say what makes us feel timid, I think that what we need to realize is that we're saying we don't we want people to be able to live on mission and not be intimidated. Don't be intimidated by a fear of rejection, which is a personal that's a personal thing that makes you potentially timid. The fear of rejection. A
Sure.
spiritual reason is not relying on the Holy Spirit, like you just said. It's not me doing the work. I can't. I cannot make. Look, I can't make sanctification in any regard. Look, whether it's talking about, I'll never
Right.
forget. I'll never forget the conversation that I had with Dan Ryland, who was the head of the Enjoy Ministries branch for John Maxwell. I had a conversation with him one time, and Dan Ryland made an interesting statement to me. He said, he said, I'm going to tell you something that I think that is an unnecessary intimidation of you holiness people. I said,
Okay.
what's that? He said, you think that the thing that's going to hinder you from really reaching people is your holiness standards. And he said, but let me ask you a question. Do you think that we don't preach anything? Do you think he said what he said if we come along and tell somebody, that they've got to give up their Budweiser, what
Mhm.
what he said, he said it's like he told me, he said it's like the elephant in the room for you holiness people. It's like, well, are they going to want to change their whole closet and whatever? He said, well, I'm going to tell you something right now. He said somebody whose Sunday is filled with, popping a can of beer open and watching NFL, and all of
Sure.
a sudden, we come along and say, hey, you're going to have to put that beer away. He
Right.
said,
That's a big life change.
he,
Absolutely.
he said those are major life change things. So I thought that was an interesting deal. The third thing we talked about, feeling like you may not have the right things to say, which is I think that's a religious cultural issue, because as it's already been mentioned by several in our comments, that feeling like, maybe what if I don't have the right answers. I believe that this is a religious issue, Chris, because I think we've created a culture of sort of expertise,
Yeah.
so that some people don't feel like, well, I don't have the expertise to do that. And then let me just throw in the fourth one, because the fourth one kind of hits what you were talking about. You really tackled this already when you're talking about the first one, fear of rejection, which is being overly aware of the cultural climate, the social atmosphere. So you kind of hit 1 and 4 all together when you talked about fear of rejection. Uh, let's look at those 4 again. Fear of rejection. What makes us timid? Fear of rejection. That's a personal feeling. That's a feeling of, what if they don't like me? What if they don't? The second one is not relying fully on the Holy Spirit. That's a spiritual issue. It's God's work. I can't make it happen. Third, feeling like you may not have the right things to say, right? What if I don't say the right thing? What if I don't have all the answers? Well, that's a sort of a religious cultural root that says, the people that are going to be most successful, the people who have the best answers. And then fourth, being overly aware of a cultural climate, which is the social environment, which is, you can't talk about it at work, you can't, whatever. So I
Yeah.
think I think those are four pretty key things that cause timidity, which then results in intimidation. So how do we overcome fear, right? How do we overcome that?
Can I
That
just
where
mention one thing real quick before you go on to the overcoming piece, just real fast?
Yeah.
So my man Carlos, my guy from Virginia Beach, was just out there. Great church, New Life, Virginia Beach. Awesome church. Carlos, a great dude. He makes a point, talking about social media and about all of the false info that's out there.
Uh-huh.
That's a great point, because
Yeah.
because and I can't remember who it was. I could go back and look, and somebody was talking about trust, building trust in relationships. Earlier in the comments, somebody might be able to help me, but talking about building trust, the importance of building trust, because part of the intimidation is, if you're not living mobilized, then there's so much access
Yeah.
to information. There's so much access to fake news, to false information, all this stuff
Mm.
out there. And the reality is, you can post anything online and be an
Yeah.
expert, and anybody
Yeah.
can believe that. And so it kind of goes, I was, as you're talking there, like kind of that religious, cultural, social component.
Mm.
It is a challenge of, are they going to believe me? Are they going to, Google and then go home and find information about,
Bro.
contradictory to this or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I had that conversation with someone the other day that was talking to they were having a conversation about that somebody they had gone through the Bible and they were talking about a topic about what is who is Jesus and how does he fit within the scheme of how was he God and those kind of that conversation, and they got almost like a revelation, like it was at least
mhm,
they were illuminated. I say if you have a revelation, it's hard to talk somebody out of that, but they had their mind was illuminated to this idea that Jesus Christ was the one true God of the Old Testament who robed himself in flesh. Why
sure,
why why do you need Jesus? Why do you need Jesus in an eternal context when you can have the God of the Old Testament who doesn't have a body? And that, they were talking about the God was in Christ reconciling the world to himself. And so Jesus was, God with humanity and so on and so forth. Why do you need a son of God in an eternal community thing for this for Jesus to be God robed in flesh? Why wasn't that just, and they got it. They were
mhm,
like, that makes total sense. But then they went home and then
yeah,
they started Googling
yep, yep,
and they started reading, they started, what do oneness Pentecostals believe? And they're like, oh, I don't believe that stuff. Oh, blah,
mhm,
blah, 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 blah.
mhm,
So
mhm,
I think those are the kind of things that we need to say, okay, that's where, see, but this is where, Chris, this is where I think when everything comes from a kingdom come context, and it comes from like, when we think spiritual warfare is getting into a dimly lit room and praying a bunch of really intense prayers, bringing spiritual, the spiritual darkness down and whatever, which there is a dimension. I'm not saying that there's not a
sure,
dimension of that.
sure, sure,
We
sure,
wrestle not against flesh and blood. I get that. But what I'm saying is, what would happen if we said spiritual warfare happens biggest and most and best right here? when
sure,
when when the
yeah,
enemy is trying to do what he can to get his foot in the door and wedge something out of their mind,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's so good, so good. I got you sidetracked just a little bit. So let's go to the overcoming fear causes true humility and boldness. What do we do? How do we do this? How do we overcome this timidity? God has not given us the spirit of timidity.
that's it.
Love,
Yeah.
power, and
Well,
sound mind.
the Jesus model, I think that's the key, the Jesus model. He didn't come to, so when we look at the Jesus model, these things here address sort of the issues of timidity,
Sure,
right? The Jesus model. So if we can put on the Jesus model, if we can become like Christ, if our transformation is to that end, um, you know, the Bible says that he didn't come to be served, right?
sure.
So that's a self-awareness issue. He came to serve others. So Jesus Jesus also had to overcome personal fear of rejection, right? He spoke
He
to his disciples
experienced it.
about this, right? He said, "There, are you going to leave me?" He told them, he said they've they killed the prophets, they rejected the prophets, but but they have and he said, don't be surprised when they do that to you. So
Yeah,
I love how Jesus didn't say to the disciples, look, just get out there and do it, because you know what you're going to find? You're going to find that a lot of your fears weren't warranted. You're going to find that a lot of people are actually going to like you. Like, Jesus doesn't approach it that way.
the exact
Jesus said,
opposite.
no, he said, look, they've, they've persecuted the prophets. He said they're going to persecute me and they're going to persecute you. But Jesus says, but here's the deal. But the self-abandoned life, this is why you can't be a disciple. The Bible says, if any man come after me, he must deny himself. deny herself. That's why you can't even get on the track
Sure.
until you've had self-denial. And why? Why is that? Because self-denial puts us in a position to say, it's not about me anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely, man. 100%. And that's, the experiencing it himself, like, even in his own hometown, like, he goes into his own hometown and gets rejected, and I love that, like, constantly just said, "They're gonna hate you because they hate me." Like,
Yeah.
don't let it, but what he didn't do was cultivate and create a reactionary polar opposite response.
Right.
Right? So
Right.
what's the Jesus response to rejection? The Jesus response to rejection was he maintained his identity, he maintained his who he was, he
Yep.
maintained his values, he confronted the things that needed to be confronted, but he did it with love, he did it with compassion, he extended grace, he extended mercy to people, like that I think is the biggest key, Ken, is we can have a carnal, and when I say carnal, I'm just talking about natural. I'm not talking about just
Yeah.
horribly sinful. I'm just talking about
Yeah.
like our carnal, natural
Yeah.
approach. Sometimes the rejection is, "Oh, yeah? Well, I'll stick it up your nose if that's what you want." We gotta fight fire with fire, bless God.
Yeah.
I don't see that with Jesus.
Yeah.
I
Well,
see
why don't
Jesus.
you just why don't you hit that second point right there? I mean, that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Jesus's life was the mission, so he didn't come across as forceful or brash. He was casual, calm, and in control, which I think
Yeah.
is so the in control piece, I think, is such a critical component in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's I think what you were talking about when you said, swing on the pendulum, so what are you going to do? Well, they're going to be hostile to me, so I'm just going to fight fire with fire and I'm going to be just as brash and bold and outlandish and whatever. That wasn't what Jesus was. Jesus was so humble that they could literally, bro, I'm going to tell you right now, if they would have really known who Jesus was, they would have kept their mouth shut when they said
Sure.
stuff like, "You cast out devils by Beelzebub." I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
James and John knew who he was to the point that they said, "Come on, Lord, come on, just let us call fire down from heaven and just, oh,
Yeah.
come on." And Jesus is like, "You don't know what spirit you're of.
Right.
You're speaking out of destruction. I have not come to destroy. I've come to redeem."
Yes.
And so it's so crazy. Third point, Jesus relied on the anointing in his life, not his charm, wit, or charisma.
Right. It's not a personality thing.
Right. Number 5, Jesus taught us to fear God, not other humans. Don't fear him who can destroy the body.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, Jesus went to the farthest extreme there.
Yeah.
Don't fear the person who can kill you.
Yeah.
Fear the one who has the power over your eternal destiny.
Yeah.
It's huge. And then finally, Jesus lived with an eternal perspective. It's so much bigger than this life.
Which is huge. That I mean, I
Jesus,
think
Jesus basically is like, look, here's the deal. Whatever happens in the here and now, it is only as important as it sets you up for eternity.
yes.
That's how he
Right.
lived. That's how he told his disciples to live, right?
And we put and 2, the difference between living on mission and traditional evangelism, and I'm not coming against evangelism or, having
Right.
that false argument, whatever. I'm just talking about, like, traditional evangelism is missional living is the long game.
Oh,
There may be an immediate response right now, but I also have faith that if
man.
I am living on mission, I'm building relationship, I'm demonstrating and showing somebody the love of Jesus, they may not be disciplable today, but if I love them, if I live the Jesus way, I show it in front of them, I have faith and confidence that the word of God, the spirit of God in my life, those me co-laboring with his word and with his spirit, that working together is gonna cultivate
Mhm.
questions and hunger,
Mhm.
and God's gonna give me an opportunity at some point And so I think sometimes we get so caught up, again, the fear of rejection and whatever, we get so caught up in that immediate response, that immediate reaction. But if we can keep that long game in mind, bigger
Yep.
than this life, it's more important than just this moment right
Yeah.
now. There's gonna
Yeah.
be a moment where God's gonna bring them to a place. He's a gracious, loving, merciful God that wants nobody to perish. So
Oh,
he's gonna give us an opportunity to show them the better way of Jesus
mm.
at some point.
I was reading something the other day. It was written by a senior leader in the Communist Chinese Party, and he was talking about. He said, "This is going to be so easy to ultimately bring the United States down." And here's what he said. He said, "Because
Yeah,
we're a people." He said, "You're a country that has centuries. We're a country that has millennias."
mhm,
You're a country that views things within the context that your existence in decades. We do hundreds and thousands of generations, right?
right,
And
right,
the point that this communist Chinese official was making was that so much of the way people view things, he was making it compared to communist China versus the United States and who's going to outlast the other. And it's
mhm,
and it's like, well, you've got credit cards which create instant gratification. You're only worried about how's things going for me right now. He said, we're worried about connecting the last generation with the next one. Our whole life is set up. Our world is set up to take the traditions that were given to us and hand them faithfully off to the next generation. We've
mhm,
endured for thousands of years. You've been a country for only a couple hundred years. And
right,
basically what he was saying was that our long haul perspective will outlast you.
yeah,
Well, if you look at it from an eternal perspective, this is kind of what Jesus was saying when he was saying, your life is just a vapor.
yeah,
It's here and then it's gone. And I think if we really believe that, so the thing about it is, if our sense, if our sense of living on mission is controlled by what we think, what we want, and how we feel, our comfort in the here and now. If it's controlled by those things, then what's going to happen is we're going to operate out of our temporality
yeah,
rather than operate out of our eternality. And I
so
think
good.
this is a message Jesus kept pushing and promoting to the disciples. Lord, give us that we might sit on your left hand and right hand. And he says, if you're able to drink the cup that I drink.
Yeah,
It's so Jesus. So I think that's so amazing because Jesus is so promoting this idea. It's not about the here and now. It's not about this life. It's about the life to come. And so that even when they express this desire, okay, in the life to come, let us sit on your left hand, your right hand. And Jesus is like, if you can drink the cup of suffering in this life,
yeah,
then you can have that exaltation in the next life. And it's almost like Jesus is constantly saying, if you can pay the price here, you can
mhm,
have it there. And we almost live in a world today that is less and less and less has a stomach for paying the price if
yeah.
it's more than 6 minutes.
Oh, man, absolutely, bro, absolutely. We see it in every aspect of life,
Yep.
right? I mean, you see people that would rather, they would, whatever area of life, they want the quick, the quick job to make the most money in the quickest amount of time, like, ho and there is something powerful about, putting in the work and just having that long haul that at some
Yeah.
point you'll see it pay off. That quick hit doesn't always work out like you think it's gonna work out. So, all right, so action plan. Hit us
Throw
with
it out
Ken.
there. No, throw
No,
it out there,
you
dude.
all right, 7 actions to help us to consistently this is our preparation, our personal preparation for mobilized living action plan, right?
That's it.
So, I'll go through the 7 and then just let you pick out what you wanna pick out. How about that? Does that work?
Sounds good. Yeah.
All right. So number 1, and we're going a little bit long today because we had a little bit of a hiccup early on.
Yeah.
The actual podcast will not be
The
this
final
long.
cut will not be an hour and 15 minutes.
It'll be a little bit shorter. So,
Yeah.
all right. So the seven steps of personalized preparation for mobilized missional living. Number 1, start the day with missional prayer. Number 2, live with expectancy as a sent one, the apostello, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Recognize opportunities that naturally arise, cultivate opportunities. Number 4. Number 5, recognize that person has an eternal soul. Number 6, develop the habit of asking questions and listening to people. And number 7, find someone to team up with for encouragement and accountability. It's a
Man.
good plan right there, bro.
That's it. That's it. I think, okay, so in a nutshell, missional prayer, I mean, it starts off the day. Missional prayer is, God, I'm giving my life to you today.
And if I could
Living.
just throw out, if I could just say
Mhm,
that right there, Ken,
mhm.
that's the fulcrum.
That's it.
That's the key piece that everything hinges on is when you are committed to missional prayer, all of the other things have a way of like you're more sensitive to the spirit. He's
Yeah.
guiding you. You're
Yeah.
praying for James 1:5 wisdom that God will give you wisdom in these situations. So if you're like, how do I get started in this? You make missional prayer an everyday part of your prayer life in the morning.
Mm, mm. Yeah, and I have a tendency, as a human, a yet to be fully redeemed. I like that phrase, a yet to be fully redeemed human. It's kind of Paul's "Oh wretched man that I am." In my yet to be redeemedness, it's
Mhm.
easy for me if I skip number one, if I
Yeah.
skip missional prayer, it's
Mhm.
easy for me to start allowing the things that happen on a daily basis. It's easy for those things for me to start feeling like those things are problems that are trying to control my life, and so
Mm.
so
Yeah.
I get 2 or 3 phone calls. Hey, pastor, I need to talk to you. I get, somebody's like, hey, I'm having a really bad day. Do you mind if I give you a call? Those kinds of things. And if I'm super loaded and whatever, then what happens is the people that I'm called to serve, Jesus said, feed my sheep. They become problems that stand in the way of me accomplishing what I need to do today. And so, I'm just being honest. And so I think that living with expectancy as a sent one, if you're a sent one, who are you sent by? So
Yeah.
if you're sent by him, no soldier goes to war at his own cost, which means
Sure.
God's going to equip you. God's going to give you he's going to resource you. I think when we recognize the opportunities that naturally arise, yesterday I pulled up to Starbucks. I went to the window and the lady that handed me. She doesn't really fit the model of most of the people there that work there at that particular Starbucks, and she's probably in her early to mid 40s. And I said, "Hey, there's one of my favorite baristas today." And she's like, "Hey, me." I said, "Yeah, you," and whatever. And I said, "How's things going?" She said, "Oh, I helped my sister with her house yesterday." She went through this whole deal. And she said, "I don't have school right now." And she said, "So that's why I'm spending more time working here." And I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "You don't have school, meaning you're out?" Or she said, "No, I mean like me, I'm in school." And I said, "Oh, wow." And obviously she's not college age. And so
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, wow." I said some life transition stuff, huh? And she said, "Yep." She said, "I'm going back to school." She said, "To be an engineer." And I said, wow, I said, my brother and I said, our dad I said, he went to college to be a civil engineer. My brother-in-law is a mechanical engineer. And then my son-in-law is a biomedical engineer. And she said, I'm going into biomedical engineering. I said, hey, do you mind if I bring my son-in-law in and introduce him? He'd be a great resource for you. And she said, oh, I would
Whoa.
love that.
That's awesome, dude. That's so cool, man.
I'm just saying
Started
that's,
Yeah.
so I
Started with the
started.
just
Yeah.
conversation, prayer
Yeah.
and conversation. It's amazing.
Exactly. I started with missional prayer, which caused me to see myself as a sent one. I had expectation that something like that would happen. I
Yeah.
recognized when a natural opportunity arose. And then cultivating opportunities, continue to cultivate those opportunities, those people, those relationships, recognizing this is the thing, recognizing that person has an eternal soul.
Yeah.
It's
Which
this is
which I
way
think Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think sometimes it's hard for us to get past what we see,
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
so true.
It's so hard to get past, like, the physical and what we see, and we do I mean, the reality is we all make judgments, we all make
Yeah,
don't judge a book by its cover, but we often make those judgments, and the reality is, like you said, see them as an eternal soul, and so
yeah,
even if they have something in their life that maybe rubs you the wrong way, a
so true.
lifestyle or something that they're doing, the
So true.
reality is they're still an eternal soul, and that to get to that place is going back to number 1.
So true, man. So true, Chris. And the funny thing about it is, I was told when I took my first public speaking class, and I was told to do something to think of the audience in a way that makes me not be intimidated by them, and
Mhm.
which, a lot of just silly different things that are told, to do. Uh, Ultimately, I think this one here, recognizing that person has an
Yeah.
eternal soul, reduces things down to, look, when it's all said and done, we're all going to stand at the judgment of God. So anyway, 6, developing that habit. I think asking questions and listening to people is so key, which also has to be a part of our others awareness. And then, man, having someone to encourage, someone for accountability, somebody. It doesn't mean, it's funny because I think I've had people through the years that have been like, well, Jesus sent them out in twos, and we should go out and find people and go out in twos. But the reality is that's an unnatural way to do life in our current
Mhm.
so in our current culture. It's
Sure.
just it's just an because of the reality is that the best missional opportunities happen within the natural everyday rhythms of life. And back in the day when things were, in Jesus's day, in that biblical era, it was much more common to have a lot more free time, that your life was more flexible. You didn't punch a 40-hour time clock. Usually it was,
Sure.
there was just so much more freedom. So how do we then do that? How do we team up in pairs? How do we, Jesus sent them out in two. How do we be sent out in two? Well, I think today it is find someone to team up with. And that could be take them on if you find somebody and say, hey, let's find some people and let's have a Saturday breakfast. And we have
Sure.
you could do
Sure.
something like that. But ultimately at the end of the day, I think it's the encouragement and the accountability that gives you the
Man,
overcome the timidity.
100%. 100%, bro. Because it is when you do it on your own, just like it's like, going to the gym, it's proven that when you have a trainer, you have somebody there with
Yep.
you, you're willing to push past. If you
Yeah.
don't have that person, it takes an exceptional will, an exceptionally strong will
That's so
because
true.
because nobody wants to really push past those pains and whatever. It takes an
That's right.
exceptionally strong person to do that. But when you have somebody, if you're running a marathon, they tell you partner up with somebody to run because
Yeah.
when you have to run those days that you don't want to run
Isn't
and
that true?
right? And you've got somebody there that holds you accountable, but then also is there for encouragement when you're like, "Man, I'm just not feeling it today." So I think that's huge, and I love what you said, like, it's not, like, kind of the natural rhythm of life
Yeah.
for us, so you gotta be intentional about finding that piece of it, who's somebody you
Mhm.
can partner with for the mission, be accountable. Man, great stuff today. We had a lot of great comments, Kim. We tried to get to a bunch of them, but, man, just a lot to talk about today. Um, you wanna close us out here? Some
Yeah.
final thoughts
Yeah,
and
I love
partnering with
Jason.
pastor churches?
Yeah, I love Jason Rodriguez's statement. As a recovering plate spinning co-vocational pastor, I've had to walk into work every day and remind myself, this isn't just my job, it's my mission field. Wow. I mean, there's no there's no summarization statement that I could make better than that.
So good. So good.
It's awesome.
Well, and this is a lot about what we do with helping pastors create a culture in your church where you've got people that are naturally living on mission. What that looks
Yep.
like and what that means is not a seminar where we come in and we, try to get people hyped up to go live on mission. This is exactly what what J-Rod said there about
Yeah.
it's not my job, it's my mission field. How do we get people to get to that place and create that culture? We would love to connect with pastors, Ken. As I mentioned, I think I mentioned last week, but
Mhm.
we're at a place kind of moving some things, transitioning in the network. We've got some great pastors that have been in it for a while, and we're kind of ready to maybe look at taking on a few more churches and pastors to help in this. So if you're interested, check us out at the mobilizedchurch.org. I'm sorry, the dillinghamgroup.org.
Yep.
The mobilizedchurch.org is coming soon.
Yeah.
But the dillinghamgroup.org, all of our social media sites, I would encourage pastors, Ken, to do the assessment.
Mhm.
There's an assessment that's available. Do the assessment. You'll get a personalized report back, and then we'll set up a conversation with you to go through that and talk about that, and kind of where you're at in the process of living or having a multiplication network or a multiplication movement. So
Yep.
appreciate everybody jumping on today and dealing with our Norwegian
Mm.
faux pas.
What in the world?
So it was a great day. It was a great
It
day.
was.
So appreciate the comments. Appreciate everybody being on today. We look forward to coming back to you next Tuesday around 10 o'clock. Until then, go live